Welcome back to Gold Derby. I'm Christopher Rosen. I'm so pleased to be joined by Jessica Williams, who plays Gabby on the Apple TV Plus comedy series Shrinking, opposite Jason Segel, Harrison Ford, and a cast of many great other performers. It's so great chatting with Jessica. I love the show. I love your performance. I was reading an interview with Bill Lawrence, and he said that he had a philosophy, like in the pilot episode, the character and the actor, it's like the character is like a 50-50 split between the writer and the actor, and then he hopes it'll be like 80-20 going forward, more to the actor than the writer. So I guess, like, when you read Gabby or approached to play Gabby, what was it about that 50% that you were like, I could, what was the other 30% you were like, I could really grow this, I basically, and like make it my own?
Yeah, I think, well, when initially when I signed on, first of all, thank you for saying that. But when I signed on, the gentleman I met with, like Jason, Bill, Neil's the head writer, and Brett, they didn't really know that much about Gabby. They just had a few things that they knew they wanted to have happen to her. One of the big things is they knew that they wanted her to kind of be the lighter one in the office, because Jimmy, played by Jason, is grieving, and Paul, played by Harrison Ford, is Harrison Ford. So they wanted my character to really kind of balance them in the office. And then they also had watched some of my stuff on The Daily Show, and I come from like an improv and comedy background, and they had seen my stuff. And so they said, even before I signed on, that they would allow me to improvise and stuff like that. And we would figure out Gabby along the way. And so what they did was, a lot of times we would shoot, and then the writers would watch what we shot, and then they would kind of respond to what I was improvising or what worked for my character. So then, that by the time you get into that second half of the season where Gabby really comes in, she's just sort of she's very, very much like a lot more developed, I think.
Yeah.
So it was just a lot of improvising and figuring out her rhythm and her beats and what worked and kind of what didn't.
Was there a moment? Yeah, was there a moment for you where you were like, you kind of figured her out, I guess, like for you, like, or was it like,
No, it was just, honestly, I thought the most important thing was trying to figure out her relationships with each person, whether it was with Liz being very specific, with Jason being very specific, Jimmy with Harrison being very specific. And I think once I kind of attacked those scenes with specificity as much as possible, then Gabby sort of fell into place. So like with Harrison, for example, it's really fun to bother him. Like, that's just fun and funny to me. And just knowing what I know about Harrison and just seeing the way he plays Paul, that helped. I would be like, what can I give him to be just more irritating and more upbeat? And so I just sort of played into that. And so then that helped inform like how Gabby was going to be in those scenes, like especially watching it back, because we did it like a year ago. I was like, oh, cool. It's cool to see how our relationships turned out.
do you usually like watching yourself like that, or do you not?
No, I can't stand it.
Okay.
But eventually it was one of those where I was just like, I gotta see what the scenes with Harrison Ford is like, at least, and
Yeah.
now it's fucking crazy that those scenes exist. Like, one of my favorite scenes I got to do was walking in on him and his doctor when Gabby has to pee. And I can't believe that in my lifetime that just exists on camera forever. Like, just me interacting with him and just doing all this and stuff like that. It's really, really fun. I'm
It's
really
good. Yeah. You also
yeah,
have that, you
yeah,
have that great scene, obviously, where you guys are singing Sugar Ray in the car together.
yeah,
Which is
yeah,
personal favorite
yeah.
of mine. All of Gabby's musical tastes are just on point, I feel like, for
Thank
me.
you.
Because it's like a
Yeah, me
mage.
too. It's like me too. And there was like other things that I pitched that they were like, absolutely not. And it was mostly about what Harrison Ford could stomach. But I pitched like Michelle Branch Everywhere,
Oh,
Ocean Avenue by Yellow Card, Fat Lip by Sum 41. I grew up here in LA. And so it was one of those things where they said, what do you want to sing with Harrison Ford? And I was just like, I got a lot of bad shit that I would love, like some stuff I would love to sing with that dude. And so that was really surreal. And I think
yeah.
the most surreal part of that scene, I knew every word, obviously that song, but was driving in front of him. I was pretty stressed about, because he's like kind of the ultimate pilot.
So that's funny. So I actually
Make
do
sure I
drive.
had my hands
Yeah.
on 10 and 2. I was pretty stressed about it.
That's wild. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'd be really nervous too. He's Harrison Ford and you have to do
yeah,
something.
totally.
That's
Totally.
It's worse than the singing. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a nightmare for that part was a nightmare. I hated it. And he did have some comments on it. And he never like would comment on any of, he's a very giving actor. I don't think it's normal for actors to comment on other people's acting. It's kind of rude.
Right.
Like, the only thing is like, when you turn, you gotta. And I was like, oh, because I think I was just probably doing this because I was so freaked out.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You mentioned like the relationships with like Jimmy and stuff. I rewatched this season obviously because I knew we were doing these and stuff. So I've seen it twice, not to brag, but I was like, oh, it's really great. And the thing I loved, like the first time through, I was actually really surprised that Gabby and Jimmy hook up, right? Like even though and the chemistry I feel like is so specific because like you have like it's like a friendly, there is like a little buzz between them in the beginning, but you're not sure if it's like romantic, and then obviously you kind of like it is, or at least become sexual, right? And I guess like I was wondering how you kind
sexual. That was funny.
I'm a square, but I was like,
it does become sexual, Chris. That indeed.
It does.
You heard it here. You heard it here first, Gold Derby.
Yes.
It does become quite sexual. I'm just kidding.
But so I guess I was like the specificity of that, or like playing that nuance of it where it's like, because it's not like a will they or won't they, I feel like, which we've seen.
No, yeah. Well, what's funny is that was always the plan. It was like, we're both tall. Like, I don't know if people didn't call it. That was always, they were like, we know these few things about Gabby. La, la, la. We know they're going to hook up. La, la, la. And I think before leading up to it, I was like, okay, so are we going to make it like, will they or won't? And they're like, no, like, it's not, so it's just sort of like, there's a lot of just like reacting and responding and then figuring out like her and Jimmy's relationship and then not showing too much. Like, we want to go more seasons. And I think like even Jason and we have really good chemistry. So it's just kind of not showing too much and then just sort of, figuring out that first season. But that was always the plan.
Right. Do you have like, was the chemistry with you and Jason, I guess, like you do have great chemistry and like it is a great match of comedy, I feel like.
Yeah, there's great chemistry between all the characters, I feel like, and I feel like we really sort of like nail it in the season. But I got COVID our first couple of weeks of shooting. And so I was a little behind, like they had to kind of shoot everything else. And my first scene luckily was with Jason. I was super nervous. I definitely could have puked. But then we discovered really quickly that we were just kind of on that sort of same page of like just sort of improvising and sort of being able to do the drama and the comedy at the same time, and that for some reason we were working in the exact same way. It's hard to explain because we're both very different. So that was really cool, and it helped me feel really comfortable on set really quickly. And one of the first scenes I got to do that day was with him and Harrison in the office. And so that was a nice way for us to figure out that really important dynamic between the three of us, because I think the office scenes are some of my favorite scenes between the three of them.
Yeah, it's really fun. And they're all so different and like it just works as a group.
Yeah, they balance each other out really well, I think.
Yeah. The other relationship I want to ask you about, it was Alice, is Jimmy's daughter, played by Lukita.
Yeah, Lukita. Right? Yeah.
I love that because I feel like Gabby's playing like is obviously like maybe like an older sister or like even like not a mother replacement, but there is a maternal aspect to it, and then also like a friend, and it's like all these things at once. And I just love how uncomfortable it is, but also like really sweet and like thoughtful. And I guess like how did you kind of go into that and like thought about that?
They're very tender. Like Gen Z really stresses me out. They scare me in a good way. Like they're all so cool and chill. And they're so like a lot of them are so authentic, and especially Lukita, she's such a natural, very good actress. And there's always a part of me as a millennial that just wants to kind of impress them and get along with them. I always want to know like, what's going on? Do we love Doja Cat? I love Doja Cat. Like, what's going on? Do we agree on that? And so I think that's a very sweet relationship. And again, it just goes back to trying to attack all those relationships with authenticity. So I was sort of thinking, it's like, I love my best friend, and what if this was my best friend's baby, and daughter, and how tender that relationship is, but also, being a cool auntie and being able to still be Gabby and say, hold on, we desecrated each other, being able to do that and have that sort of friction is really fun. But I feel really lucky because it was really easy, like, especially as we go into the second season, like I got really lucky with Gabby figuring out how she fit with everyone. It was kind of it was kind of a no-brainer. And it was this situation that I got dropped in, and most of my choices, all of my choices, everybody was like, yes, 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 let's keep going. Yes. It was like a yes and situation. And so it was about being present and finding joy in Gabby, and finding joy in working with like Lukita, who's super talented. And I love having that heart to heart with her, and being cool auntie.
Yeah, it's really great. I think that relationship is super fun. You all the like you mentioned, like all the relationships are great and the chemistry is great. Obviously, you're also playing a therapist too. I guess like how much do you like what kind of research do you do to play that kind of character? Like or do you like I think I read you said you had been in therapy for like or you know for like a
Yeah.
while. So I obviously like
Yeah.
you have like are you taking like personal experience you had and like trying to figure it out or like how did you kind of figure out how to play that aspect of Gabby?
Yeah, I've been in therapy for a long time, long time, and I love my therapist, but I don't know that much about her. So I think of it as lending an empathetic ear, but getting paid money to do so. And so I try to amplify those traits of being a good listener, trying to listen to people more actively while I was preparing for the role. And also I know therapy. And also just playing, I wanted Gabby to be the therapist that people wanted. Like I wanted her to have a really colorful office. Like I walked in and kind of put scrunchies on her desk and scrunchies on her lamp. And because I had a friend who did that and they wrote that into the show. I wanted people to want to seek out a really colorful and friendly Black therapist. And that was kind of my go-to, was trying to present her really authentically and kind of give her this sort of magical life, so that she felt real to people. So she has this job that's sort of disconnected. It's supposed to be from his clients. There's supposed to be boundaries. And then you get to experience this really kind of this very kind of, she wears her heart on her sleeve, kind of emotional, thoughtful, kind of colorful person. And so just kind of combining those two, hopefully to make like this character that feels real and whole, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I think that definitely you did it because it does feel like yeah, like it does, the show just feels really authentic and like you said, like the relationships are so good. Obviously, like we are talking here, there is a second season that will happen, thankfully, because it ends on a
Yeah.
great and a cliffhanger, I guess, not to be like hacked, but it
Yeah.
does end on like a major like thing. And what are you hoping for? I guess for Gabby in season 2, or what have you thought about? Or I can't imagine you have like you don't need to spoil it, obviously, but I mean, like, what are you hoping for? Like, what are you thinking of? Would be great to see from her in the next season.
I want to see her in all of these relationships. I miss the actors, I miss the crew. I had so much fun, like just kind of laughing in between takes. And like I love finding the joy in every scene and trying to figure out what makes the scene work. And I just want to get back to work and do that. And I really want to work more with Ted McGinley, who plays Derek a lot. He just makes me laugh and laugh. And I think towards the end of the first season, you kind of start to see him and Gabby and kind of their relationship. And I think he's delicious. And so I really want to explore that more.
Boy, he is great. I loved him
He
from
is. He's
Married
hysterical.
with Children. I remember watching him
Yeah.
on and like,
Yeah,
man,
me
he rules.
too. He just
Jefferson,
rules. Like he's so good on their show. Like
really good.
he's like a machine. Like, at the end of the Matrix when Neo sees like zeros and ones and he's like, I know the code. And you're like, yeah. And then Neo's like, that's like Ted with comedy. He just like comes in and executes. And I love to be around that. And it's just so funny.
He really is. Was there, I mean, like, I guess like you're talking about, like, it sounds like, and like, again, like, I think you could tell, like, watching it, not every time something where people have a good time on it, that is the product, obviously, that doesn't always connect. But I do feel like when you're watching the show, it feels like everyone there seemingly does really like each other. Like, you could just, it just comes
Yeah.
off, like, and out of the screen. Was that a surprise for you? Or like, what, was there anything that, like, kind of, where you're like, oh, wow, I did not expect it to be like that, but it really,
I think every time you wrap a job, you get so used to it and you hopefully fall in love with everybody that you get a new job and you're like, oh, it'll never be as fun as my last job. Like it'll never be Love Life season 2 and how much I loved William Jackson Harper and everybody there. And no, it's like it's always the next job. You always like make a new family, but it is like when you close the chapter, it's always really scary. It's like first day of school. And so I feel really lucky. Like we shot on the Warner Brothers lot, which is like 15 minutes from my house. And I never had that before. I'm always shooting somewhere else. And I got to drive like my car to work every day and get coffee and have a routine. And it was a really cozy set. Like it was just, especially when I got to improvise, like towards the end, the second half of the season, and just, acting, but then I'm also improvising so much as Gabby that every day was like doing a really fun puzzle and just like kind of figuring it out and trying to be as present as possible. And we just all love each other. So it's really nice that, to me, I feel like it comes through that we're all just sort of enjoying each other.
Yeah. Do you have
in
a
a nice
favorite
way.
improv before we go from Gabby that you
Do
would like to
I?
call out?
Yeah, I think that whole scene with Harrison and Wendy Malick is
Okay.
so funny when Gabby walks in and catches them. There's so much there, like added. And just Gabby's reaction of just this childlike wonder, and then just being like, congratulations, and look at her legs, like all of that, I feel like is one of the things I'm most proud of this season. And I love the way, it was edited and directed, and they caught so many good moments. And I even like when Gabby leaves the scene and Harrison's just like rolling his eyes, at me. Like there's just so much there that I really love. And I'm so happy that like that just gets to exist. And I got to do that with Harrison Ford. I was really like, at that point, really comfortable with Gabby. And it's just such a childlike like wonder and response. And so it was really fun and playful. And I'm so proud of that work.
Yeah, it's really great. It really is. It's a great
Thank you.
character, and it's a wonderful performance. Jessica Williams,
Thank
who
you. Thank you,
stars on,
Chris.
yeah, of course, who stars on Shrinking. Thank you so much, Jessica. Appreciate it.
Thank you.